Springfield's Talk 1041. Hello, everyone, and a good Wednesday morning. Hope you're all doing just fantastic. We're streaming live, KSGF.com. If, of course, you miss any of the program, don't worry. It is up in the on-demand section. We've got that. Spotify, iTunes, all those places. And then, of course, you can watch it as well on YouTube. That live video stream sponsored by our good friends at Springfield Wraps. Wrapped the studio here. Designed it as well. All right. So the Matt Gaetz thing, we are going to talk about this a bit. I know there's been a great deal of focus on it, and this is the here we go again sort of situation, and it is the problematic wing of the Republican Party that is activating itself. As I watch how some of these Republicans, some, are and have behaved with Matt Gaetz. And right now, in particular, it reminds me of the way that a lot of the players in the WNBA have behaved with the Caitlin Clark situation, where the WNBA collectively, the players individually, they've complained for years they don't get enough attention. There isn't enough craving for the WNBA, and then they win, right? You get Caitlin Clark comes along, and this wave of excitement and interest, and then there are a certain number of players that spend their time tearing her down. Spend her, figuring out how they can knock the legs out from under her. And it's jealousy, envy, and jealousy, and self-destructive. This is a time that Republicans just oughta say, Trump nominates these people, that's it. This is who he nominates. He won. Let him have it. Let him have whomever he wants. Let that victory lap happen. Elections have consequences, but there's some Republicans, they just can't help themselves, and a lot of it is this hatred for Matt Gaetz because he was so problematic for the Republican establishment and in Congress, and the whole Kevin McCarthy thing as Speaker. McCarthy's made it very clear he's got this just personal vendetta, and so you have this cattiness that is self-destructive, much like the jealous players in the WNBA that are jealous of Caitlin Clark. And that isn't even to say that Matt Gaetz is the best pick in the world or that Matt Gaetz is pure as the driven snow, but for Pete's sakes, what's more damaging, really? I mean, later in the show, I'm going to go into some of the Matt Gaetz stuff because it gets talked about, and the allegations. Well, there are allegations that he had sex for money with an underage girl and so forth. And many of you know that the Biden Justice Department, when they looked into this, were like, we can't even touch this. This thing is so clearly made up. And I thought I'd give you some background on it, including the fact that one of these witnesses that the anti-Gaetz Republicans have relied on is a witness that's in prison. And among the offenses that he's committed in the past was falsely accusing a local politician of having sex with an underage girl. The exact same thing. The exact same thing that he accused Gaetz of. These Republicans, they know it. I mean, it is the most clear-cut case of false accusations against an individual, in this case, Matt Gaetz. I mean, like I said, even the Biden Justice Department, they were like, wait, And you think of some of the ludicrous things that they've done, how far they've been willing to go. But I'm telling you, it is this envy, it is this jealousy. It's the same thing that caused John McCain to hate Donald Trump and his supporters because of this envy and jealousy. The same reason Mitt Romney can't stand Donald Trump and Trump supporters. And I'm not talking about simple disagreements, because you're going to have those, but there's just this deep-seated hatred that and envy that Republicans get when they feel as if someone who is undeserving within the party is getting somewhere that they feel entitled to be. There's an entitlement problem within the Republican Party, and that's what that is really is fueling this. At the same time, I'm not a huge fan of Nancy Mace for a number of reasons, but she's really pushing this issue of not allowing men to use women's restrooms in the Capitol. And this is because of the first man elected to Congress that pretends to be a woman that wants to use the women's restroom. And she's like, no. And what I do really like about her is that, unlike so many other Republicans, she is not only not backing down, she is very vocal and proudly standing behind the reasons why. Some audio, Jim Jordan grilling the director of FEMA, specifically regarding the communications that were discovered in which FEMA workers were told to stay away from homes of Trump supporters while rescuing people and trying to deliver aid to people. And what we're hearing is what we heard from Lois Lerner and the IRS. And anytime these government entities get caught targeting in one way or another, Trump supporters or conservatives, oh, it was an isolated incident, we're investigating, oh, this is in no way, shape, or form a reflection, oh, by the way, we don't have any answers to anything because the investigation's still underway. It is the same old, same old. Weather in a moment. Right now, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Colorton, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 51. Tonight clear with a low around 34. For your Thursday, sunny with a high near 47. And on Friday, sunny skies with a high near 49.
KSGF.com, your chance to win tickets to see Chris Tomlin live, Evangel University, Spence Chapel, Wednesday, December 11th. Just get registered at KSGF.com. And if you've been hunting either this season or past and you've got some great picks, you can upload those to our Show Us Your Best Shot page, sponsored by Brad Pistol, Safe Money Radio. Big wins up for grabs there as well. You can see the listing of the full prize package that has been put together specifically for hunters by Brad Pistol, a hunter himself. And that is at KSGF.com. And the picks, like I said, they can be picks of past seasons. And the pick is when you upload one or more, that's your entry. This is not a competition of the best of, most points or anything along those lines. It's simply a random drawing from those who submit the picks at KSGF.com. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. If you have home buying needs, you have at your disposal Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. She has incredible tips. She is full service, and by that I mean she's not simply there to set appointments, to do an open house, to let people in your house. She wants to help you sell that home, or if you're looking to buy one, she wants to make sure you get into what you need. She's just fantastic. I've used her. Sarah used her to a much greater extent. So many of you have used her. I recommend that you not only check out some of her reviews that you can find on her social media or her Zillow page, but reach out to those folks if you have any questions. You'll find that they're very specific in the reasons that they like Emily Johnson, which that tells you that these are genuine, authentic people who really, truly, they're not just, if you've ever been asked to fill out a survey and you didn't want to, and so you're just kind of vague about things, that's not what you find with so many of the reviews. You find people that really genuinely want to express, this is why she's so awesome. That's what you get with Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. Thought I'd play some audio. This is Jim Jordan, and as we know, the FEMA response from the most recent damaging hurricane, was it a couple months ago or so, was not up to par in the opinion of most people. And what did not help, of course, was, you had communications online of people, some of which are former current military, but as civilians, they were doing what they could to help. You had private helicopter pilots that were flying in to try to rescue people. And the biggest roadblock to helping people, according to these numerous reports disconnected from one another, was the government. The entity, of course, that's supposed to be helping was a hindrance to the help in many instances. Then whistleblowers began to reveal that they were being instructed to not help rescue or provide needed help and assistance to Trump supporters. This is the government that the Democrats have created. And so the FEMA director was testifying, and it is pretty cookie cutter response from these department heads, and that is people that are really investigating, but when it really comes down to it, they sure don't know a lot, and these are isolated incidents. It is as if they have these flashcards, and no matter the scandal, no matter what evidence or proof there is, no matter how many whistleblowers, here, these are the note cards, just pass them along. Here are the 3 or 4 things that you say over and over again, and that's what Jim Jordan dealt with yesterday.
Recognized as the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, Mr. Jordan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Administrator Criswell, is Miss Washington lying to us?
Miss Washington has...
She said it's common practice. You said it's reprehensible and isolated. Both statements can't be true. So someone's not giving us the facts. I'm kind of trying to figure out who's not telling the truth.
The actions that Miss Washington took were unacceptable.
Well, you had another employee. Now, they remain anonymous, but I think one of my colleagues pointed this out earlier. A FEMA official who spoke on condition of anonymity said Miss Washington likely received, quote, very clear guidance from her supervisors. Is that person lying too?
I have not received any evidence outside of the screenshot that Miss Washington directed.
So those 2 people are wrong. They're not telling the truth to us.
We are currently investigating this.
But that's not what you said. You said this is isolated, reprehensible, hasn't happened. This is the only time. And they're saying, nope, it's commonplace.
I am saying that FEMA's mission is to help all people.
Well, let's look at maybe the best evidence we have is the actual screenshot. Can you put the screenshot up on the screen? Let's look at what the text message said. The text message said, implement best practices. Like, this is the best practices. We're going to implement them. And they talk about making sure you're going in pairs or with more than one person, avoid the Trump homes, drink your water, take your towel, coconut waters. So stay hydrated, walk with someone else, and don't go to the Trump homes. It seems pretty common and matter of fact in the actual evidence we do have, the text message itself. But you're still saying Miss Washington and this other person aren't telling the truth.
When I received this text message, it was not in accordance with the way we conduct business at FEMA, and I directed
Even though
the
it said best
termination.
practices, even though it said stay hydrated, which everyone would agree with, even though it said go in pairs, which everyone would agree with, even though it said bring a towel, make sure you're covered. I mean, it said coconut water is the best way to stay, even though it said all those practical things, the part about avoiding the Trump homes, that's not a best practice, that's not commonplace. Is that what you're saying?
That is nowhere in our policy, and I can't speak to
I'm not saying it's in your
motivation
policy.
behind what Ms. Washington did.
But it was, okay, now her supervisor is this Mr. Hershey. Have you talked to him and to find out if he knew this was happening?
I understand that he was in her chain of command, and this is under investigation.
Have you talked to there's 13 people on this text message. Have you talked to all 13 of those individuals?
This incident is under investigation.
That's not what I asked you. I know it's under investigation, and we know how investigations work when it's done inside the agency. It takes forever. I'm asking, did you talk to the 13 people on this best practices text message?
The Office of Professional Responsibility has taken this, and they are following appropriate protocol to investigate.
Is the Inspector General looking at it as well?
And I have asked the Inspector General to take a look at this.
Any idea when they're going to talk to these 13 people since you have it? Have you talked to, how about you personally? Have you talked to any of these 13 people?
I have not talked to them.
You have not talked to any
I
of them?
have an entire team that focuses on this investigation, and that's what they're doing.
Seems to me it's part of a mindset that's in government. And this is the scary part, because I think it's broader. And you don't have to take my word. Take it what people have said. I mean, this reminds me, we've talked about this many times, but I can think of, well, actually the same person, let's go back to that. The same person who said that this likely received very clear guidance, this other FEMA official, also said this: I've heard from other entities who are serving in North Carolina that there was clear guidance to be mindful, quote, of the types of people who are in Western North Carolina. That's pretty derogatory stuff there, isn't it?
I have not seen it.
But you know what it sounds like? It sounds like Peter Strzok. Peter Strzok, when he said, oh, I just went into Walmart, I can smell the Trump supporters. Sounds like Joe Biden when he said, oh, the garbage I see is the Trump supporters out there. Sounds like the guys the Democrats had, the professor the Democrats had testify back in 2019 in the impeachment. Conservatives, especially very conservative people, tend to spread out, perhaps because they don't even want to be around themselves. This disdain, this mindset that's in the government where everyone's deplorable, everyone's garbage, everyone is, smelly people at Walmart, and be mindful of those people in Western North Carolina. That's what it sounds like. And again, the best evidence is the text message we have, which reinforces that mindset that we have seen from so many people in our government.
The actions directed by Ms. Washington are unacceptable. And when I received this text message, I directed her termination.
Do you have any idea who this other official is?
I do not. And if you have that information, Congressman, please share it.
I don't have it. You're the one who's got it. You're the one who hasn't talked to the 13 people on the text message.
It has not been raised to me.
All right. I think, Chairman, I yield back.
I don't have it. I mean, you're the one that's in charge of the audacity. Wow. He referenced in terms of the perspective that is demonstrated by the government of folks that are Republican, that are conservative, the Trump supporters, by referencing comments made by different departments or by Democrats. I still remember, I've referenced it before, was it the John Kerry campaign, or they were going to go down to that NASCAR event? Remember, I know I've brought this up before, and they advised, it was some Democrat entity or campaign, and they advised them to get vaccines before they...
Yes. Yes.
Because of all those redneck, I mean, it just, their view. They don't say this stuff in their minds because they're trying to be insulting. That is really what they think of average Americans. They think the worst of you. That's why they believe they have to tell you how to live your lives. Otherwise, you'll just constantly be having sex with your sister, and they can't have that happening. But I'm telling you that this whole exchange and the response when caught brings me back to Lois Lerner and the IRS. It's the exact same sort of thing. Oh, well, whenever it was discovered they were targeting conservative organizations, conservative groups, and Lois Lerner, head of the IRS, was, well, this was an isolated incident. We're investigating. Oh no, I haven't had a chance to talk with these people, but this was an isolated incident. This isn't part of the policy of the IRS. It's the exact same thing. Of course, we would learn that it didn't have to be a policy because everyone just knew this is how you operated. It was worse than policy. It was culture. And that is the culture within the federal government in particular in this country. It is anti-American citizen. We've got more coming up. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Ooh, great song. All right, we're going to do something that we just do every so often because we'll have a lunch bunch that has to reschedule at the last minute. And so when that happens, oftentimes it's just because it's last minute, it's difficult to contact a new winner and be like, you want to go to lunch today? And so when those occurrences happen, we throw it out there and say, hey, you want to go to lunch bunch today at Retro Metro? So that's what we're going to do now. We had to shift some of our winners around just because things happen, and our winner was unable to do it today. So that leaves it open. So Retro Metro lunch bunch today with me and Sarah. You can bring up to 5 of your friends, Sarah and me, and 5 of your friends, and they open at 11. But whatever is convenient for your lunch schedule. And if you want to win for today, this is for today, then text the word lunch to the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line, which is 447-KSGF. And you have until 7 o'clock to do it. And after 7, if you win, you will be contacted by Sarah. You don't have to bring a full 5 people. We've had an instance in which just the winner was the only one who showed up. But you can bring up to 5, and it can be friends, family member, whomever you want. But that is for today. Like I said, we can meet as early as 11. That's what time they open, but whatever time works best for you. The Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line is 417-447-KSGF. Will they get a bounce back confirming?
Yeah,
Okay.
and it'll tell them, basically all the information that
Okay,
you just
excellent.
said.
All right. So go ahead. You have till 7 o'clock to do that this morning. And then when will you contact them? When should people expect to be contacted?
Like 7:05.
Okay. There you have it. And please confirm back. That way we, know that you've confirmed and that you can do it, which I'm guessing you can. Otherwise, you wouldn't text in, right?
Right.
Makes sense.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Colorton, Fox 49, meteorologist Tom Schmidt. Sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 51. Tonight clear with a low around 34. For your Thursday, sunny with a high near 47. And on Friday, sunny skies with a high near 49.
I found it was back in 2007, and I found a story regarding the vaccinations for
Good, because every single page I went to was 404.
Yeah, this
Not
is
found.
a McClatchy, DC story, and part of the way into the story has this setup. The brouhaha began when the House Committee on Homeland Security decided to study public health preparedness at mass gatherings. They advised aides to get immunized for hepatitis A, B, diphtheria, tetanus, and influenza before going to the UAW Ford 500 in Talladega last weekend and the Bank of America 500 this weekend northeast of Charlotte, North Carolina. And so, of course, you had all sorts of feedback, specifically from Republicans. Quote, Democrats should know that there's no preventative measure yet designed to ward off the blue-collar values and patriotism of NASCAR fans and so forth and so forth. Warning them that if they aren't careful, they just might catch some of it. And so that was, you had, it was Democrat committee, and they were, it sort of leaked out that they were telling people, if you're going to go, you need to make sure you're updated on your vaccines. And, they gave reasons that arguably aren't way out in left field. They said that at the time they were going to be in those areas because they were also going to be checking healthcare facilities, and so they were going to be around potentially sick people and so forth, which, whether that's true or not, I don't know. But the reason, of course, that it got some attention is because it is a stereotyped view that the elites, particularly in the Democrat Party, have of the average American. Just trash that needs to be told how to live their lives because they don't know any better. Yet it is, of course, the government that consistently demonstrates they are the worst at giving advice on how to do just that. Back to this, if anyone needs a reminder as to why it is so important Donald Trump puts people in place to run these government departments who know nothing about how to run these government departments, the questioning of the head of FEMA yesterday should refresh that memory. We keep hearing of some of these appointments that Trump is making. Well, this person doesn't have any sort of experience running a government department. Good. That should be the very first question on the resume. And if the answer is yes to do you have experience running a government department, then that resume should be thrown to the side. If the answer is no, in fact, I don't really know any, I got private sector experience, or I've run this different charitable organization over here, or I've run this thing over here, something that required results, a position in which if results were not met successfully, then that individual would lose that job. That is the person that you want running these different departments, and that's what Trump has here in the theme of individuals that he's picking. I think there's also this divide, and some of it is the elites within the Republican Party as well. They believe that it is a no-brainer to characterize an appointment as somebody with no experience running a $3 trillion government department. And in their minds, the American people should hear that and go, oh, well, then clearly they're not qualified. And what they don't realize is that arguably a majority of people, if we're going to reflect it off the vote, believe that it's disqualifying to be part of the government system. That's the problem. It's like, you guys are not getting the message. This is why Trump got elected. They keep running around presenting their argument as if and I guess they don't. They just still don't get it. And the questioning of these department heads, and the played in the earlier part of the hour, Jim Jordan, and he was primarily grilling the director of FEMA over the text messages that were going out en masse, and numbers of other whistleblowers that saying it's common. I mean, yeah, everyone knew that the word was, if there's a Trump supporter's home, don't go help them. This was just known. And the constant response during the questioning, well, that's not our policy. That's not our policy. And this was in September, so we're talking a month plus, almost 2 months that this is unfolded, and a month, I'd say, since this was discovered. Yet they still have not, according to her testimony, interviewed all these people. Imagine that you work at, you're the regional director of a restaurant chain, and somebody reports you to, I don't know, CEO of the company, whatever, sharing text messages that you're sending out to employees saying, don't serve black people. Use that as an example because this is clearly unacceptable. And then there are other employees that get a hold of the CEO and tell the CEO, oh, yeah, I mean, that's just kind of known. We're told not to serve people of color. So then immediately, well, I need to have a sit-down interview with the person in charge of these restaurants. Can you imagine the Q&A being reflective of the Q&A between Jim Jordan and the head of FEMA? You're asking this individual in charge of the restaurant, like, listen, I'm seeing the text messages. This is clearly going out as best practice to, make sure the soda fountain's cleaned up, make sure the bathrooms are checked every 30 minutes, make sure the food is served hot, don't serve black people. This was sent out to multiple people. What the heck's going on? The response being, well, that's not part of our policy manual. That's unacceptable. Okay, but why is it, I'm being told this is part of the culture. All of these different people here. Well, I don't know. I haven't really talked to them. I mean, wouldn't you within 30 minutes have picked up the phone and been talking to these people? How many weeks has been going by that these investigations are going on? The reason, and I can't stress this enough, this is why this is why the appointments that are being made need to be appointments for people who are not part of this world, who have not been part of running government agencies. Because this is a culture. It is one in which it doesn't matter, and this has happened over and over and over again. I think the first time that it really became so clearly transparent during the Obama administration was Lois Lerner, the IRS, where we find out that certain Americans of political persuasion are targeted. When it gets caught, it's the same. No one's held accountable. And the people who are talking all say the same thing. It's just common practice. Everyone knows this is how it works. And cultures are very, very difficult to change. It's different than if you have a culture of people who are good, and then you get some real piece of work in charge, and they're directing people to do bad things, and and then it's like, thank goodness that person's finally out of here. The culture is the problem, and that's why when you hear. In fact, there's a story of the Washington Post, they portray all of this as such doom and gloom. That the headline, Trump ignores transition rules. It's a hostile takeover, ally says. It's like a hostile takeover. Well, it's not a takeover because Trump got elected. That's called, democracy. This isn't a takeover. Well, but he's replacing all these people. Yeah, this is his department, the executive branch. He was hired. That is not a takeover. The American people hired him to do this. And they keep noting like this bloodbath that's, it's just going to fire thousands and thousands and thousands of people. Well, if that's what's needed, because clearly this is a cultural problem. This is a very deep-seated problem. And that means a big cleansing needs to be coming. The louder they scream, the establishment folks, the closer we are to getting there. Think of them as a metal detector. The louder and more frequent the alert comes, the closer you are to hitting pay dirt. And that doesn't mean that every pick Donald Trump makes is going to work out brilliantly. It doesn't even mean that every pick he makes is actually the best pick in the world. But to whom should we default? To whom should we give benefit of the doubt? Have we learned nothing? Listen, I get it. I understand the instinct. There's this high and we're excited, and yes, and then you think, because of the way they present certain things, and I'll use Matt Gaetz as an example, think, well, I don't know about that one. Trump was asked, are you sticking with it? Trump's like, yeah, there's no question about it. He's the right man for the job. So to whom should we default? You have two opposing versions here of whether or not he's going to be the best person for the job. You have, screaming the loudest, the establishment people. Some, by the way, Republican U.S. senators who are wavering on whether to support him or not had absolutely no problem supporting Merrick Garland for Attorney General, an individual who targeted parents at school board meetings with the Patriot Act, targeted pro-life individuals, throwing them in prison, sending out year after year across this country SWAT teams to drag back to Washington, D.C. grandmothers who were in the Capitol on January 6th. A guy who, in many capacities, was in charge of directing lawfare against Trump and his supporters. And you're going to find some of the Republican senators that are, I don't know about Matt Gaetz. I don't know. There's some real disturbing stuff. Had no trouble whatsoever putting Merrick Garland in there. So if you get that feeling about, because this, like I said, I'm not saying every single pick that Trump makes is the right pick. But if you have these two opposing perspectives here, to whom should we default? Knowing what we know about the track record, I'm defaulting to Trump. Not to mention, aside from just judgment, it is his choice. These are his people in the office that the American people hired him to run. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. I want to advise you to gut check some things, and I recognize that there are oftentimes things that are said that just seem like, well, I don't know, that may be a little too far. That probably means that it's the right thing to do. There's this story. Elon Musk, Vivek Ramaswamy approved the, quote, very reasonable proposal to abolish Department of Education. By the way, this is something that Republicans have been campaigning on and raising money on ever since I can remember. You know, I find it somewhat amusing that the Republican Party that oftentimes tries to paint Donald Trump as, well, he doesn't really have those conservative values. But then when he pushes something that the conservative wing of the Republican Party talks about over and over and over again, that we need to do it, Department of Education, it's horrible, it's awful. He's like, yeah, that sounds good. They're like, well, I mean, you can't do that. That's too radical. Do you know the Department of Education hasn't even been around that long? Well, didn't it start with the founding of the country? This was on his way out. Jimmy Carter signed off on creating that department. Out of it was part of, it was under some, umbrella or the jurisdiction. And it wasn't until 1980 that it actually came into existence. Most people alive today were alive when the Department of Education didn't even exist. I'm kind of guessing that. You're talking pre-1980. I don't know exactly the breakdown of people, the population pre versus post, but it's close if not. There's a lot of you listening right now who got an education before the Department of Education ever even existed in this country. Schools existed. Some might even claim, based off of actual data and results, that education in this country was of higher quality before the Department of Education existed. Now, some will say, well, that isn't proof that the decline in education is because of the Department of Education. And that is a different discussion. But to that point, you can't argue that it's helped. You certainly can't claim things will be worse without a Department of Education if you look at results. And if you looked at what education was like in this country, particularly compared to other countries prior to the Department of Education. But this is one of those human instincts that people have, and it's a natural instinct, the emotional reaction of something that's just always been there. Daylight savings time is another example. This ludicrous thing that it's just like no one can tell you why it even needs to exist any longer. But, well, it's always been there, so it just feels wrong for it to go away. And so nothing happens with it. The Department of Education, that and the fear-mongering. You listen to the left, and they're going to tell you that all of a sudden, children won't get scholarships, and they're not going to be educated, and people with autism are going to be thrown into the gutters. And, it's, as usual, the scare tactics. The louder they scream, it's like a metal detector. The closer you are to hitting gold. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. The Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. Keep in mind, all these media folks who tell you how bad these picks are the same ones that were telling us how sharp Joe Biden was. Yeah. Remember, this is why America elected Donald Trump. News in 60 seconds. I'm Nick Reed. Trump's controversial nominees. You know what controversial means? When it's Donald Trump, it means just stuff they don't like. That is the definition of controversial. Well, we don't like him. It's a controversial pick. California House race flips to narrow lead for Dem amid weeks-long vote count. I mean, what an embarrassment. Absolute embarrassment that at times are on full display as a reflection of the incompetency of people that are running certain voting districts in this country. No other country has this level of incompetence and or perhaps a combination of corruption. Still counting. It is shameful. And it's always in these. Listen, it's a different situation if it's, a recount, a hand recount because it was so close. But even at this point, that should be done. But this is just a straight up race where we're still counting those votes. And listen, I get it. I know, all right, it's run by Democrats. But really, Democrats, you can't find anyone else that can run these precincts, these districts. No one within your party. I get it. The people in those particular areas, overwhelmingly Democrat, and so they're going to vote Democrat over and over again no matter what. You're telling me you cannot find any person, not any person in the Democrat Party in these blue counties, these blue areas, these blue municipalities that has any competency whatsoever? I mean, if I am in a heavily Republican area and that's how I vote, and it was this level of incompetence, I would say get somebody else in there. Surely there must be another Republican that has some level of competency, but apparently for Democrats that just doesn't exist. Coming up on Saturday, A1 Custom Car Care. You guys are going to talk about making sure vehicles are winterized. You and Dustin, right?
That's right.
And financing as well.
Yes, and we're doing that holiday prep because lots of people are going to be on the roadways for Thanksgiving. Christmas parties are coming up. So, yeah, we're going to talk about things that you need to do to make sure your vehicle's safe for the road.
Yeah, here's the thing I learned. You're like, well, I'm just going, my grandparents, they live in Lebanon, so it's not that far of a drive. Well, if around Conway you break down on the side of the road, does it really matter how far? I mean, yeah, it's a little more convenient, but it's still, it's Christmas Eve, it's dark out. It's not like, oh, well, this is just fine because we're only half an hour away. Nah, that's not how it works. You don't want to be broken down. So even if you are going to be traveling somewhere that's not that far away, it's a good idea to make sure you're ready for it. A1 Custom Car Care. Excuse me.
Ew.
Had to clear my throat. New York, it's just amazing. Human beings, I find them quite fascinating. Particularly Democrats. And I know I'm stereotyping, but... And you've got a number of these different Democrat-run cities that are doubling down, that are, I think it's Los Angeles just, officially declared themselves voted to be a sanctuary city. I was like, okay. I mean, you know what? This is what really should happen. All right, going to be a sanctuary city. No more federal dollars for you. All right, it's your choice. None. No more federal grants. No, you're cut off. That's it. If you are going to harbor and protect people that are not legally supposed to be in this country, I think you ought to be. I mean, what happens if you knowingly harbor a fugitive? If you've never been in this situation, you've seen it play out in movies. If you are hiding someone, giving them protection when law enforcement is seeking them out in order to, whether it's to take them to jail or because they need to move them to another jurisdiction, you get in trouble for that. They don't go, oh, well, Isn't that noble of you? Isn't that virtuous of you? You get in trouble. You have these councils, these mayors that are all Democrats. And they do the exact same thing, but in mass. And, of course, it isn't their lives that are necessarily put in danger. It's the Lake and Rayleighs. It's Riley Lake. I always get the name mixed up. Lake and Riley, thank you. It's the Lake and Rileys. It's the innocent Americans that are out for a jog, that are going through the drive-thru somewhere, that are sitting in their vehicle at a gas station. It's not the Los Angeles mayor. It's not these high-profile Democrats that are able to pay for security with your tax dollars, of course. And so they openly invite dangerous people. And incidentally, we know because numerous times these criminals, I'm talking specifically about the ones who commit things like, rape and murder. When they get caught committing another murder or another rape, they oftentimes fully acknowledge that they came there because it was a sanctuary city. But hey, that's what the voters in those areas want. They love it. Love it. Let's have us some more of this. Let's continue to put these same people in charge to put our lives at risk. Now, over in New York, I'm going to play some audio coming up here. You have Kathy Hochul, and she's wanting to put in place this daily toll for simply driving through certain parts of New York. And originally it was going to be $15, $15. And then it's been lowered to $9. Now, Trump has come out against this. And there are apparently going to be some lawsuits to try to prevent it. And I'm listening to Charlemagne, his show, anti-Trump guy, and they're griping about the fact that Hochul, who I'm sure he voted for, he's a left-wing Democrat, is trying to impose this. And they're all sitting around talking about it and how awesome it is that Trump is trying to stop her. And I'm like, what is it with you people? You vote for people that do things you openly acknowledge are bad, and then you praise somebody whenever that you vote against, so you talk about being Hitler because, well, thank goodness they're president and they're going to step in and do something about this. What do you base your votes on? Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Colorton, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 51. Tonight clear with a low around 34. For your Thursday, sunny with a high near 47. And on Friday, sunny with a high near 49.
Okay. Now, New York just insistent on making that state and New York City as unbearable as possible, making it as crime-ridden as possible, as expensive as possible. It really is as if people are trying from within to completely destroy the city. It is just total craziness. Yeah, I think it is to you as well. And for me, it's not a political thing. It's just a common sense thing. And what is it with people that you hire someone to do a job, they make things worse, and then you just continue to hire them? I try to put it in the context of somebody working around my house. I use the roof analogy quite often. You got a leak in the roof, and so you hire somebody to fix it. And then the next time it rains, not only is the roof still leaking in that one area, but it's actually leaking elsewhere. And so you call them back, and they're like, oh, yeah, no, I'll take care of it. And then it gets worse again. And, at some point, when do you go, maybe I should stop paying that person because they ain't doing the job. These areas of the country in which it is Democrat-run areas, I mean, so there is that political component of it, but that's not why I have a problem with it. It's not because they're Democrats. It's just because of the results. I mean, you cannot go to New York without there at least being the possibility that some deranged lunatic is going to push you onto the subway tracks, then urinate on you. And God forbid anyone step in and try to restrain the person, because then New York will put them on trial. I mean, this is the insanity of it. And then, well, let's just put the same people in charge. We're pretty good with all of this. Hochul is revived a plan for what they call congestion pricing for vehicles that drive through certain parts of New York City. Now, Trump he's very opposed to this, and he called it the, quote, most regressive tax known to womankind. I'm guessing he's saying womankind because Kathy Hochul is a woman, and she is the one that is trying to push this upon the people of New York. It's a $9 daily toll. Now, there was an earlier plan she had for $15. And middle and working class and lower class people, of course, where this is who it hurts the most. It doesn't hurt the donors of the Democrats, these individuals that are being driven around in limousines, or they have their Lincoln Continental drivers or whatever the vehicles are. And even if they drive their own Mercedes, at what, $9 a day? But like most Democrat policies, it's regressive, and Trump's right. This is very regressive. It disproportionately harms middle and lower class people. Trump said, quote, I have great respect for the governor of New York, Kathy Hochul. Look forward to working with her to make New York and America great again, but I strongly disagree with the decision on the congestion tax. So let's hear what the crew over there at the Breakfast Club has to say about this whole back and forth. Now, this is a crew of anti-Trump individuals, very pro-Democrat, so clearly pro-Hochul.
And they said the reason they're trying to go so fast with this is because they want to get this done before Trump gets in office. So,
yes, because Trump is it is projected that he will just kill the entire thing. This is true.
And guess what? That's a good thing.
Yes.
Listen, here's the thing. That's why I keep telling folks, whether you voted for the person or not, when the person does something that you agree with, I'm all for it. I don't want these congestion prices in New York.
No, it's going to raise the prices for too many people.
Hey,
it's already expensive.
That's right.
Hey, do your thing, Trump. Do your thing.
Do your thing, Trump.
Okay.
All right.
Well, let me stop for they use that in the ad. Like
they definitely use it. Do your thing.
Now, I love how they're just relying on Trump to save them from their own making. I don't really know what Trump can do in order to stop that. I mean, there may be some legal recourse the federal government could take for some reason. I just don't know the answer to that. But I love how these people who have portrayed Donald Trump as Hitler are now just relying on the fact that he's going to help fix this for him. Trump's going to step in. He's going to save us from this. Thank goodness. Thank goodness Trump is there. He made this statement that, hey, listen, I've always said, whether you like someone, vote for them, you got to give them credit when they do something that's right. Okay. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I listen to the Breakfast Club every day. But I'd be interested to know what policies specifically and their results of Trump has Charlemagne called out as being something that didn't work. I'm not talking about just the idea of it. Well, that's mean, or, separating kids from families. I'm just talking about the results of it. Yeah, the reason I bring that up is because here you have somebody, the way he's presenting himself, somewhat virtuous, that, hey, listen, I'm just saying, when things work, they work, and when they don't, they don't. And, boy, just because I didn't vote for the guy, if he's doing something that's right, then I think that we should be supportive of that. I suspect that virtually every reason Charlemagne, at least that I know we've talked about here, and that has made headlines during the election, that he's talked about, reasons that Trump shouldn't be president or was a bad president, was never even based on any results. Wasn't that the economy was worse? Wasn't that the world was less safe? You want these people to do some sort of, make a list, man. If what really is important and what really deserves credit and criticism are results of policies, if credit should be given where credit is due, let's make a list of things that Trump implemented, and then the results that you believe demonstrate he should not be or shouldn't have been reelected president. I'd be surprised if he could really even come up with any. Which, of course, is why he and so many others defaulted to Trump is Hitler, Trump is Hitler, Trump is Hitler. So here you've got listen, I will say this. I am grateful, just in the context of conversation and acknowledgement, that here you do have individuals that are left-wing and they are people of color that are openly acknowledging that, hey, Trump is right on this one, Hochul is wrong on this one, but the fact that Hitler, the fascist dictator, Donald Trump, this left-wing morning show, is openly relying on him to save them from increased taxes that they voted to put in place by way of Hochul. Streaming live, KSGF.com, I'm Nick Reed. When it comes time to get that RV put away for the season, any sort of maintenance that you need done, or even if it's just a once-over routine maintenance, like oftentimes it's a good idea to do with your car, good idea to do with your home. Your RV is a hybrid of the two. Wilder RV, Clinton, Missouri. People come from all over the country in order to purchase and maintain the quality of their RVs with Wilder RV because of their not just reputation, but past experiences as well. They're great folks up there. And so whether it is maybe wanting to check one out, you're thinking, take advantage of those end-of-the-year deals, or getting it ready for storage until next season, Wilder RV. Their site's easy. It's wilderrv.com. But if you forget it, don't worry. It's over there at ksgf.com under Nick's endorsements. House Ethics Committee Chairman Michael Guest signaled his committee is likely to ignore Speaker Johnson's recommendation to withhold releasing its investigation of Matt Gaetz. Matt Gaetz, who stepped down after President-elect Donald Trump announced his nomination for Attorney General, is no longer a member of the House and therefore no longer under the committee's purview. Johnson has openly opposed the release of the report and urged the committee to withhold it, a sentiment he relayed personally to Guest over the weekend. The chairman told Politico, quote, "I appreciate Mike reaching out. I don't see it having any impact on what we as a committee ultimately do. The committee meets today, where it is expected to discuss whether or not to release its report on Gaetz." And again, who needs Democrats when you have Republicans like this? Republicans they have this amazing knack to self-sabotage and to allow Democrats, after this election, Republicans are handing the Democrats an opportunity to sit back and be like, well, I guess we don't have to do anything. Let's just watch this play out. How dumb do you have to be? It would be one thing if this were some scenario in which there were some brand new allegations with evidence coming up. But that's not what's going on here. This is stuff that years ago was determined to be false by the Biden Justice Department. And I'm going to go over with you some of what it was the Justice Department learned, and it'll become very obvious why even they were like, okay, clearly we cannot do any. These allegations are obviously not true. That's what we're dealing with. By the way, one of the things that is supposed to separate us from other countries was we were supposed to have a law and order system in which if you are accused of something and there is ample evidence that the government believes proves that you are guilty, then you are supposed to have a speedy trial. Then it is decided whether or not you are guilty or not. And then if you are not guilty, that is it. That's the end of it. In fact, that whole double jeopardy thing was put into place. Why? So the government cannot hound you and hound you and hound you for something that you as a citizen were given a speedy trial, and then the determination was made. What is being done to Matt Gaetz here is the antithesis of how our system is supposed to work. Our system was set up to prevent this sort of thing from happening because this is what the world had been accustomed to, where if the government didn't like someone, they could hold over their head accusations, threats, ruin an entire life, to where maybe you didn't actually do anything, but they could always threaten to come after you or pretend as if, well, there might be some evidence, just dangle it and dangle it and dangle it and make the process worse than any sort of actual conviction and punishment. And to watch the Republicans be lapdogs of the Democrats' efforts here is why it's like, the Republican Party takes these massive steps forward because of Donald Trump, and then you have these Republicans that do everything they can to pull it back, to undo and defy the voters. We got to take a break. We got a traffic update coming. And again, I want to share, the Federalist actually has a real good piece laying out the specifics of how it is that we know that, and how we know that the Justice Department knew that the accusations against him were not true.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Color 10, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 51. Tonight clear with a low around 34. For your Thursday, sunny with a high near 47. And on Friday, sunny skies with a high near 49.
Sorry, I was texting back on the text line some of these different messages. Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line is 447 KSGF. Now, I'm not going to read the piece in its entirety, but the relevant portions of why it was that the Matt Gaetz investigation was dropped by the Biden administration. And it was largely because the witnesses, they were completely not credible. And a portion of the Federalist piece, which will get posted so you can read it in its entirety, notes that the Health Ethics Committee report, which, this is 2 years after the DOJ dropped the investigation into the same claims on the ground that the 2 central witnesses had serious credibility issues. Yet, these are the same 2 central witnesses, the same witnesses, the House Ethics Committee has relied on for its report of Gaetz. So think about that for a moment. Witnesses that, how upside down is this? That Merrick Garland's Department of Justice said, yeah, these are not credible people. The Republicans who are spearheading this anti-Gaetz effort are using those witnesses. I'm telling you, Mike Johnson has got to get these people in order. The 2 witnesses have massive credibility problems, writes Molly Hemingway. The claims arose from Joel Greenberg, one of the most corrupt Florida politicians of all time, according to Florida reporter Mark Caputo, who is now with the anti-Trump media outlet The Bulwark. Among many things that the former Seminole County tax collector admitted to. Now, so Joel Greenberg, that name, Joel Greenberg, this is the source, the original source of the allegations against Matt Gaetz, that he was like paying underage girls for sex and whatever else. Joel Greenberg. Among many things that the former Seminole County tax collector has admitted to, as part of a wide-ranging case for which he's currently serving 11 years in prison, was falsely accusing a local political opponent, Brian Butte, of having sex with a minor. It is the exact, this guy, he's in prison because he accused a politician he didn't like of having sex with a minor. That is the exact same thing that he also did to Matt Gaetz. This is someone that the Republicans are relying on. And when I say the Republicans, I'm talking about these anti-Gaetz ones. Greenberg also reportedly admitted to frame his own attorney with pornographic images of children. One New York Times write-up of Greenberg was headlined, quote, like the Tiger King got elected tax collector. So this guy, this is his go-to MO to frame people, is to implicate them which makes you wonder about his own background. If that's your go-to, is to try and frame political opponents or people that you feel have wronged you as having sex with underage people or having pornographic images of underage people. I mean, this is this guy's MO. According to the Washington Post, clearly not a pro-Trump outlet, Greenberg admitted to, quote, fabricating allegations against a school teacher who was running against him to be a tax collector. Greenberg had in that instance sent a letter to the school falsely claiming the teacher had an inappropriate sexual relationship with a student, which, of course, once again, similar allegation to Matt Gaetz. U.S. District Judge Gregory Presnell, who was appointed by Bill Clinton, said that Greenberg's actions against that innocent victim were, quote, downright evil. Now, but before I continue, here's what I want you to understand. The Republicans who are using this guy's claims against Matt Gaetz, they know all of this. This is all public information. They know what they're doing. You know, they want to portray themselves as, well, gosh, we're just finding out about this information. Well, we just need to investigate it. We need to do, it's been investigated. They know the results of the investigation. The politicized employees at DOJ have shown themselves willing to explore novel legal theories and bend federal rules to the breaking point in pursuit of their most reviled political opponents, most notably former and future President Trump. Gaetz has a reputation as one of the most tenacious cross-examiners of DOJ officials from his perch on the House Judiciary. Yet even that DOJ was unwilling to exploit Greenberg's unsubstantiated claims apart from leaking them to the press to hurt Gaetz' reputation, which, by the way, is the same thing that's happening now. The DOJ would announce their closure of the investigation in 2022. The House Ethics Committee, however, decided to pick up the drop and deflated ball and run with it a full year after the DOJ dropped the investigation. This is the Republican House Ethics Committee. The fact that the disgraced Greenberg was cooperating with the House Ethics Committee was shared for publication with the New York Times and other media outlets. The news media, quote, should not be laundering smears from people in prison, a Gaetz spokesperson said at the time. Gaetz speculated the House Ethics investigation was punishment for his leading role in the controversial ouster of House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, a move that angered many of his Republican colleagues. And I have no doubt that's exactly what it was. This is vengeful punishment of the worst kind. Listen, it's one thing. If you want to punish someone politically because they politically punished you. So in other words, he led the ouster against McCarthy, and so you strip him of all his committees. And you deny him any fundraising dollars. But to falsely paint him knowingly as somebody who is having sex with a minor, that's depraved and that is evil. I got to take a break. I'll pick up here where I left off on some of the factual information that these Republicans are aware of as they use it anyhow to falsely smear Matt Gaetz with allegations. I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Hey, thank you. Well, the storms that rolled through earlier this week, they were pretty rough. We had lots of rain, lots of wind, and if you were outside over the last couple days, you noticed any detached shingles, maybe some damaged gutters, I want to recommend Josh and his team over at the Pyramid Roofing Company. Now, the Pyramid team, they offer free roof inspections, so whenever you give them a call, you're not out anything. They use high-quality products, and they also offer discounts for our military members and our first responders on all new roof installs as well. So whether you need a whole new roof, a roof repair, commercial roofing, or maybe you just want to go ahead and check on your roof before winter hits, go ahead and give the Pyramid Roofing Company team a call today. Now you can schedule that free roof inspection, and you can give Josh and his team a call today. You can find all of that contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
Molly Hemingway is doing the country a tremendous service in compiling the information that we do know that has been made publicly available regarding those who have accused Matt Gaetz of like having sex with the minor, crossing state lines with the minor to have sex, whatever the allegations specifically are. They seem to vary. There's some vagueness there. And this is information that the Republicans who are going after him know. Among them, it's that this Joel Greenberg, who is the source of all of the allegations, is in prison for, among other things, accusing someone else who is a political opposition to him of having sex with a minor. He also, at one point, was described by a judge as downright evil because he falsely alleged that a school teacher who was running against him to be a tax collector was having an inappropriate sexual relation with a student. That's according to the Washington Post. Now, this is part of the reason that the DOJ, as much as they hated Matt Gaetz, dropped the investigation against him because, clearly. Now, a little noticed lawsuit from 2023 gives some insight into Greenberg and two women involved in the scheme against Gaetz. Greenberg alleges one of these women had sex with Gaetz when she was a minor. Again, the same thing he's accused others of. The other woman is her longtime roommate and friend, 2 years older, who has reportedly corroborated her roommate's claims. The crime spree Greenberg was convicted of included charges related to his ongoing sexual relationship with the 17-year-old himself. He met her on a site for older men with money and younger women needing money who are prepared to have sex with older men. The practice matches sugar daddies with sugar babies and is considered a form of prostitution. The woman lied about her age when she registered on the site, and the married Greenberg maintains that he was not aware she was a minor when he began having sex with her. So he actually did what he has accused other people, including Gaetz, of doing. The lawsuit shows that Greenberg became insistent that Gaetz help him obtain a pardon for the various crimes. When he was reportedly told that wasn't going to happen, Greenberg reportedly said he would seek vengeance on those who refused to help him during his time of need. So this apparently is where the relationship between Greenberg and Gaetz began. He was looking to get pardoned for having sex with a minor for money. And Gaetz said, no. And so he said, fine, you'll pay. It was at this point Greenberg began claiming, without evidence, that Gaetz and a variety of other Republicans and local businessmen were involved in his criminal actions. The lawsuit says Greenberg was paying the legal bills of Gaetz' accuser. He allegedly also lied about Gaetz to, quote, reduce his own prison sentence, according to the lawsuit. The latter claim was supported by a September letter from Gaetz to the House Ethics Committee. Gaetz revealed a letter from a jailhouse informant who shared a holding cell with Greenberg when Greenberg admitted, quote, making stuff up about Gaetz as part of a plan to lighten what would have been as much as a 27-year sentence in federal prison. He was eventually sentenced to 11 years for his role in sex trafficking, identity theft, public corruption involving taxpayer money and contract stalking, and securing fraudulent federal business loans. Again, this is the person that Republicans are relying on to smear Gates. 2 former federal agents interviewed the inmate, who told them Greenberg said the woman that Greenberg was convicted of having sex with as a minor, quote, would be willing to adopt Greenberg's lie in hopes of future financial benefit. The woman is referenced in news reports and legal documents as A.B., a 2023 lawsuit from Chris Dorworth, who's a former Florida state rep and friend of Gates, reveals that Greenberg said A.B. performed deviant acts on the internet for money and would, quote, do whatever he said because he was paying her legal bills. He even sent a text message to Dorworth confessing he was paying for her legal bills. Quote, this is the text. I'm having to pay for AB to retain a lawyer. They contacted her and are wanting her to talk. She doesn't want to talk to them. Likely Venmo was the link. I need help with this. The lawsuit shows that various people Greenberg spoke to about his problem felt he was trying to ensnare them as having been complicit in his crimes, frequently to their confusion. After speaking with Greenberg's lawyer, Dorworth texted Greenberg saying, quote, I have nothing to do with any of this and think it's incredibly uncool. You're trying to lawyer me up to be part of it, Joel. Not effing cool. The younger woman has gone on to be an active participant on OnlyFans and has appeared in pornographic videos under a stage name, according to the lawsuit. News reports claim she told the House Ethics Committee the same information she told the DOJ before it closed their investigation on the grounds that she and Greenberg had credibility problems. Judge Presnell referred to the woman as, quote, essentially a prostitute, end quote. The DOJ decided that the people making the accusations against Gates had such massive credibility problems that they could in no way charge him with any crimes. All the House Ethics Committee has done is revive those same accusations from the same unreliable witnesses, as they did with the salacious accusations contained in the Democrat-funded Russian collusion dossier and the Washington Post's unsubstantiated report against then-federal Judge Brett Kavanaugh. The people who run Washington appear not to be concerned about the validity of the accusations so much as the ability to use them to stop a political opponent. And what's vile about these particular Republicans, and not just the ones who are pushing it, but the Republicans in the Senate who will use this information, they are no better. In fact, they're the same as the people who knowingly pushed the fake Russian dossier, as the people who knowingly pushed the fake accusations against Brett Kavanaugh. They are the same people, cut from the same cloth. When I say the same people, they're obviously, these are Republicans, but their moral depravity is no different from the trash who have pushed the lies against other people, whether it was Trump, whether it was Kavanaugh. And it just brings into light what is the swamp. And it's almost as if when the American people collectively demonstrate that they have an understanding of how dark and depraved the swamp is, there's someone who says, hold my beer. And that's what we're seeing right now with the Matt Gaetz accusations. And incidentally, I will say, this is not an argument that this information is not an argument for Matt Gaetz being the best pick ever for Attorney General. That's a totally separate issue. But that's not what they're talking about, is it? If you have legitimate reasons that you believe somebody should not be appointed to a position, then fine. But when you are pushing known false allegations against someone, that's a whole different thing. And it makes you trash. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Marjorie Taylor Greene, who, in the eyes of establishment Republicans, in many ways is the female version of Matt Gaetz. She's a firebrand. I really, in terms of presentation, she's the Republican Ocasio-Cortez in terms of her willingness to really just throw bombs out there, not ideologically, but of course, because she's a Republican, she's this horrible, awful conspiracy theorist, as opposed to Ocasio-Cortez, who's an inspiring young woman that we should all look to for guidance and advice. And sometimes Marjorie Taylor Greene words things in a way that I think, even her supporters are like, well, yeah, no, she's right. I may have said it a little bit differently. But she has posted on X a statement regarding her GOP colleagues and their plan to release this ethics report on Gaetz. And I got to tell you, it's one of the best ever. This is what she posted. She stated that if her Republican colleagues in the House and Senate are going to release the ethics report and rip apart people from their party that President-elect Donald Trump has selected to be in his cabinet, then they should, quote, put it all out there. This is the exact quote from her post. For my Republican colleagues in the House and Senate, if we're going to release ethics reports and rip apart our own that Trump has appointed, then put it all out there for the American people to see. Yes, all the ethics reports and claims, including the one I filed. All of your sexual harassment and assault claims that were secretly settled, paying off victims with taxpayer money, the entire Jeffrey Epstein files, tapes, recordings, witness interviews, but not just those, there's more. Epstein wasn't/isn't the only asset. If we're going to dance, let's all dance in the sunlight. I'll make sure we do. Yeah, that is the other. You almost get lost in the forest for the trees. For this body of individuals to claim that, even if these allegations were believable and weren't proven to be made by people who are liars. Well, Matt Gaetz, he's known for being a partier and liking to have sex with women. Oh, and he's in Congress. How did he survive? Are you serious? I'm with Marjorie Taylor Greene. Open it all up then. If this is going to be the new standard, let's see it all. Let's find out every one of these members, Republican and Democrat alike, who have had ethics reports against them and open them for the world to see. Like she says, if we're going to dance, let's dance in the light. people are becoming very opinionated and active on social media regarding the new Jaguar ad. Have you seen any of this, Sarah? Well, now that I said it in that English way, Jaguar. You know, the vehicle line,
yes.
the Jaguar. And there's a Fox Business story. It's not the only. I mean, the story is based off. I saw a lot of social media comments on this new ad, and Fox Business has it in the context of Jaguar could be facing its own Bud Light moment after online backlash for a new ad that came out yesterday. The car brand released a new promotional video debuting its reimagined logo on its X account under the slogan "Copy Nothing." The ad featured androgynous models and bright-colored, over-the-top outfits, including one man wearing a dress, along with other slogans such as "Create Exuberant," "Live Vivid," "Delete Ordinary," and "Break Molds." The ad didn't even have a car in it, which
You would think that would be like step one.
Yeah. Shortly after the ad premiered, users piled onto the company for releasing what it called a Bud Light 2.0 campaign by appearing to focus on wokeness and modernism over selling cars. Conservative corporate activist Robbie Starbuck joked, "It just made me want to sell my Jaguar, even though I don't own a Jaguar." Columnist John Gabriel wrote, "This is so the wrong timing for this. I can understand the C-suite being conned into this in 2022, but you have completely misread the moment. Bud Light 2.0. Unburdened by taste, I see," said another. Now, here's the thing about it. And like I said, before I even saw any stories, I saw this circulating on social media. I don't know that this is wokeness as much as just weird. I think if this is, it's just weird. It has a guy in a dress, but they're all just dressed weird. It looks like what would have been a parody of an SNL commercial in the 90s for perfume, or, where it seemed like that period of time there was sort of that weirdly artistic presentation of certain things. And that's when you saw a lot of, I think, the Obsession commercials come out that were very artsy, and so they would get poked fun at a lot. And I didn't see this as any sort of left-wing wokeness, just as much as that weird, artsy, let's, just make it really weird sort of thing. And so I didn't see it as a Bud Light. To me, it was not, when I first saw it, I didn't even think, oh, here we go again, other than weird. I didn't think Bud Light where they're, highlighting a man pretending to be a woman. I just thought it was straight up weird. But it's like, what? That being said, it seems dated. To me, the weird for the sake of weird seems dated. The wokeness does seem dated, very recently dated, but even if you don't consider this wokeness, this just has this sort of late 90s, maybe even outside of that era, a little post that, as artsy and weird for the sake of it, because then that shows how artistic you are, that people think it's weird. But yeah, no car in it whatsoever. You know what? Maybe that's what they're going for. Maybe they're like, you know what? We want to get some free press, so let's have a really weird ad that doesn't have a car in it, and then we'll get some free press out of it.
I watched it without the audio, and I watched it on X. Elon responded to it, and he said, "Do you even sell cars?"
But, of course, now you have seen it in the context of the conversation where people are labeling it a Bud Light 2.0. Did you perceive it that way, or
No, it just feels really weird. I watched it, and it feels like one of those really weird fashion ads.
Yeah, yeah, that's what it seemed like to me. It is interesting, though, what a cultural impact the wokeness has had. That something that I think prior to wokeness being shoved down everyone's throat, that is an ad that people would have seen as weird, but I don't think they would have seen it as trying to push off this gender fluidity stuff, but just, straight up weird. I'd love to know how much they paid for it. I bet a lot. The things that marketing is just an amazing thing to me. Nancy Mace. All right, I want to play this audio coming up. If you have not heard this, this is the latest. And you would think that Democrats would have learned something from the election. And so that is a conversation going on in the Democrat Party. But many Democrats are saying, listen, we really screwed ourselves over when it comes to the cultural thing. And in fact, there was a post-polling report that indicated that people who were going on Election Day and had nothing, like for whatever reason, could not determine Trump versus Kamala Harris. The thing that pushed them to Trump was the wokeness stuff, was the transgender stuff specifically. There was an ad that, I don't think it ran in this market, and I don't know, it may have been just digital, but it was all based around the pronouns and the Kamala Harris, the left, and the he, she, they, them, and all that sort of stuff, and this post polling indicated that for the people, you're waiting until the very end. You're like, what are these people waiting on? How is it they haven't decided? That was the thing for them that made them think the Democrats have just gone crazy. And so with that context, there is a man who got elected to Congress who pretends to be a woman. And Nancy Mace is like, okay, let's just get this out and taken care of. Now, men use men's restroom, women use women's restrooms, based off of chromosomes, science, biology, not your feelings and not how you dress. That's not what determines this. So this is a battle line that has been drawn, and apparently Democrats are going all in on what helped them lose the election, and Nancy Mace is not backing down on this whatsoever. And I can guarantee you that there are establishment Republicans that are like, oh, why can't we just let that guy use the women's restroom? Probably mostly men. I want to play her completely unapologetic exchange with an ABC reporter coming up here in a couple of moments. Right now, latest news.
In the first alert forecast from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll have sunny skies with a high near 51. Tonight clear with a low around 34. For your Thursday, sunny with a high near 47. And on Friday, sunny skies with a high near 49.
the Democrats are trying to force women to give up the restroom safe space and allow men to use the women's restroom again. While they couch this as an issue of transgenderism, the door always swings one way. It's always the women who are supposed to give up the races, who are supposed to give up the boxing matches, who are supposed to give up the scholarships, who are supposed to give up the slots to go to the Olympics, who are supposed to give up the championships, who are supposed to give up their privacy in the locker room, who are supposed to give up their privacy in the bathroom. It's always the women that are the ones who are forced to surrender. So this whole couching it as a transgender issue is total BS. Because if it were, then you'd have an equal situation where men were also losing scholarships and losing races and losing boxing matches and being forced to shower with women who identify as men. But if you notice, that's not what's happening. Nancy Mace, out of the get-go, she's a Republican member of Congress, South Carolina. There's a Democratic Delaware representative-elect who's a man who pretends to be a woman named Sarah. And Nancy's like, just let's get this out now. We're not changing the bathroom. Men use men, women use women. This is the way everyone's just kind of accepted this. Common sense. She suspects, rightfully so, that landscape is going to change. And so she wanted that change. Now, of course, because the way the media is, they see this as an opportunity in order to paint Republicans as transphobe, apparently not realizing that argument has not been working. Apparently, they forgot what happened just a couple of weeks ago with the elections. Johnson was asked about this at a press conference. He's like, we're going to treat everyone with dignity, But he has since come out and indicated that things will be where men are not allowed in women's restrooms. An ABC reporter caught up with Nancy Mace to talk to her about this issue.
The question is, with your piece of legislation about banning women from using... Yeah. My question to you is... It doesn't go far enough. I'll be filing more bills. You have said that it was created in response to Congresswoman-elect McBride. 100%. And should legislation be created targeted at one specific person? It doesn't mention anyone in the legislation, but you've said it was aimed at her. No, I have said it's a result of this. I'm not going to allow biological men into women's private spaces. I will stand in the brink and stand in the way of anyone on the radical left who thinks that it's okay for a penis to be in a women's locker room or a bathroom or a changing room. Hell no. I'm not going to stand for it. And the speaker said it would be in the House rules package. If it's not, I'll be ready with a motion, a privileged motion to force a vote on this. This is not okay. I'm a survivor of rape. I'm a survivor of sexual abuse. And I'm not going to allow any man in any female private spaces. Now, Speaker. End of story. And by the way, I'm getting death threats from men pretending to be women. Why is it that these crazy people, the insanity, the radical left, are willing to kill women over a man's right to be in a women's restroom? Speaker Johnson has said he wants to treat every new member with the words dignity and respect. Forcing this congressperson to go into a male restroom, is that dignity and respect? Forcing women to share private spaces with men is not dignity and not respect. And I'm absolutely going to stand in the way of anyone who thinks it's okay for a man to be in our locker room, in our changing rooms, in our dressing rooms, in women's bathrooms. And in fact, if you agree with that, you're crazy, because that's not okay. It's not okay. Congresswoman, thank you, Congresswoman.
Mm-hmm.
Good for her. Give him the what for.
Yeah. There are a number of things that are demonstrated during this, but they really, truly, there is an indifference to the fact that she is a woman. Like, you could just sense that. You know what's crazy is the victim card is oftentimes thrown out to ad nauseum, but there's one status, if you will, that I think universally people have a great deal of sympathy for, and it's rape victims. And it isn't often, there aren't a lot of circumstances in which that is something that it's not something that can be used, I suppose, it's not like because it is a circumstance in which you really are truly a victim. Okay. So it's not like a race card where it's like every bad thing bad. Oh, it's because of this. Or LGBTQ card. Oh, it's because I'm LGBTQ that this bad thing happened. If you have been a victim of rape, that universally we all kind of accept that's a horrible thing. It is amazing to me how indifferent Democrats have become to that. Here she references it for her, part of the reason, and this is not uncommon. This has been something that rape victims, particularly when it comes to locker rooms and being forced to give up that safe space for men, that it is very traumatic as rape victims to be in those situations. You would think that there would be some level of at least acknowledgement from the left when it comes to that. But here she references that, particularly as a rape victim. And there's it does not faze this reporter at all. So what? Hey, so what? You're a rape victim. You're raped. Get over it. I mean, that is the attitude of the Democrats, and those at least who are still part of pushing this agenda. And I just think it goes to show how cold and inhumane that these people are. That the issue, I mean, you're talking about somebody that is coming from the perspective of this is particularly horrifying for them as a rape victim, and it is just, they're totally indifferent to it. I mean, it's just crazy. This is a demonstration of the center of the universe syndrome that the left has. And so here is a person, and even the mindset of this reporter. Well, Speaker Johnson said that everyone is going to be treated with dignity. Is it dignified to force this person to use the men's restroom? Well, first of all, if he's a man, yeah. I mean, just because he pretends to be a woman. But the perspective is not, what about the dignity of all the women? They don't matter? They don't deserve to be dignified? See, this is the upside down, crazy, insane world. And a large part of the reason that Democrats were largely rejected this time around was because of not necessarily this specific issue, but it was one of many demonstrations of the lunacy that the left has brought to this country, that you can have, all of these women, and then you have a guy who puts on a dress and says, I want to use the women's restroom. I believe I am a woman, and so I should use which incidentally, the restrooms are set up not based off of how you feel. It's based off of anatomy. That's why urinals are shaped the way that they're shaped. Stalls are the way that the toilets, and they're not shaped based off what you feel inside. They are shaped in order to accommodate anatomy. And so, all of these women, but here you have one guy that says, well, I want to go in their restroom because I portray myself as a woman. And all of the women are supposed to change who they are. All of the women are supposed to change what they feel is acceptable for that one guy. And that, to the left, is dignified. This is a very big and clear divide that we have in this country in terms of perspective about women and women's rights. And good for Nancy Mace for standing up for herself and other women. And I hope other women stand up with her. But I can tell you, I guarantee you there's some Republicans that are like, oh, this is going to make us look bad. Why can't those women just let that guy in there and go? And, of course, all the Democrats. I'd love to see if will there be any one female Democrat in the Capitol that's like, listen, I'm all for transgenderism and, whatever. But there ought to be one place we can go without a man saying, you know what, I can come here too. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. All right, so KSGF.com, a couple of notes of interest for you there. We have our annual Show Us Your Best Shot competition where you can highlight, show off your hunting picks. Brad Pistole, host of Safe Money Radio, once again sponsoring this year, and he once again has customized a hunter's dream prize pack as a hunter himself. And if you want a chance to win that, you just submit your photos to KSGF.com. The rotating tile there at the website, you click on it, and then you'll have a place to upload your photos, and that is your entry. It's not based off of voting. It isn't based off of who had the best pick. It is an entry, and so one person will be randomly drawn, and it can be a photo of years past. It can be one you've submitted in the past as well, if you like. It's a fun way to kind of show off some of your picks, and then Brad Pistole, of course, amping it up a bit there by providing. We kind of ballparked it. I mean, it's hundreds and hundreds of dollars in value of the different products he's put together. Also, let's say hunting isn't necessarily your thing, or even if it is, but you also like Chris Tomlin. Amazing Christmas concert performance by Chris Tomlin at Evangel University's Spence Chapel. That will be coming up Wednesday, December 11th, and you can get registered to win those at ksgf.com.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Colorton, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll have sunny skies with a high near 51. Tonight clear with a low around 34. For your Thursday, sunny with a high near 47. And on Friday, sunny with a high near 49.
Regarding, we were talking earlier about the social media discussion about the new Jaguar ad. And it's being dubbed woke and Bud Light 2.0. I didn't see it that way. I just saw it as trying to be really weird and artsy. And one of the notations, though, is that there's no vehicle shown in there. And someone had texted in on the Pyramid Roofing Company talking text line. They can't show the cars because they're all still in the garage being repaired. This may come as a shock to you. I'm not really familiar or have much driving experience. I don't even think I've ever been in one of those cars before. But I'm guessing based off of that text, they have a reputation for breaking down. Regarding traffic, tell Alex there's a major shutdown or slowdown on 65 at Ozark due to construction, probably about 2 to 3 miles long. Everything goes down to one lane. The left lanes are closed. So I don't know if he mentioned that in any of the traffic or not. I sometimes, I wouldn't say tune them out, but I don't tune them in as I'm reading your text messages and just checking other news items during some of that information. I wanted to play some fun audio for you. So Piers Morgan, he had a number of Democrats on his show to discuss, stuff. And 2 of the 4, Juan Williams was on there, though you don't hear him in this clip. There was some young-looking guy also. I don't know who that was. But the 2 that you are going to hear is the host of the Young Turks and then a historian. These are left-wingers. A historian by the name of Alan Lichtman. And they end up getting into... It's always fun when Democrats start tearing at each other, and that's what we hear here.
Don't blame the voters. I think, look, we could get into this discussion, but one, I think you're blaming the voters. I think that's a terrible idea. Look, I debated Professor Lichtman before. I told him his theories about the keys were absurd. I was right. He was wrong. I said he'd lose his keys.
No, you were
couldn't
not
find
right,
them before the
and I was
election.
It's a cheap shot, and I won't stand for it.
Well, who won, brother?
You should not be
Who
taking
won?
cheap
Who
shots
won?
at me.
Who won?
Make your
You
point,
live
make your
in a
point.
total
Don't make it
world of
personal.
denial.
I read your own followers' comments. They all trashed you, every one of them, and supported me.
Yeah,
So try
right,
it with your
right.
personal
Yeah, come
attack.
find out again.
Make whatever point you want.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't make it
You
personal.
don't know anything. You don't know
You
anything.
attacked me
You're
personally.
so deluded.
All right. I've only been a
Can I
professor
just-
for 51 years.
On this program,
Published
I've never been
13
able to
books.
finish.
How many books have you published? No, because you're personally
Yeah.
attacking me again. Say whatever you want, but I'm not going
Okay,
to
but
stand for
brother, you got it wrong.
Say
You were
whatever you want.
preposterously and stupidly wrong. So, okay, all right. Can I just
Don't
finish the
call me
goddamn thought
stupid.
ever on this show?
No, not if you're
Okay,
personally
well,
I
you
admitted
proved it.
I was wrong. I don't need you to call me stupid.
Okay.
Can I just say, it's great to see you Democrats all getting up.
What you manners?
It's lovely to see you.
Hey, Alan, you deserve a tall glass of shut up juice. So can you just shut up for a second and let someone who knows what they're doing?
You're so right. You're so
Okay. So
I will not sit here and
so
personal attack or blasphemy against me. You don't need to do that. You don't boost your
blasphemy
ego
against you.
by
Who the hell are
attacking
you?
me
Are you
like that.
Jesus
Just
Christ,
make your
you
point.
loser? Okay, can I
Make your point.
just give the correct answer for one?
The best, Piers Morgan, this is his show. He's just sitting back there, and he's like, it's so great to see you Democrats just really getting along. Well, the whole thing was over the Trump prediction. That professor was the presidential historian. Had predicted that, I guess, Trump would lose. I don't know the specifics of the prediction. And, of course, he was, by this Young Turks host, he's saying he was wrong, I was right, Trump won. And that's what set it off. Because you're not supposed to question professors in particular. what's a sign to me of how much, like the media, academia has discredited themselves. It is cartoonishly laughable when in this back and forth discussion about credibility, the historian was like, I've been a professor for 50 or however many years, and I have 15 books. How many books do you have? And I thought, and my instinct hearing that, it was, to me, similar to having fifth graders on the playground that are fighting and the argument gets down to my dad makes more money than your dad. Or these things that are completely irrelevant to the actual argument. And whenever Lichtman says, well, I've written 15 books and I've been a professor for this many years, what have you done? As a way of bolstering credibility, had as much relevance to me as saying my dad could beat up your dad. Or my dad makes more money than your dad, kids on the playground. And then, of course, I just thought to myself, wow. And I think I'm probably not the only person that has that sort of reaction, but that just, the destruction, the self-destruction that academia has imposed upon itself, and how detached they are, that he thinks that by default means that he is the expert because he hasn't been in the real world for decades. He's just lived in this world of make-believe that is an indoctrination center that brainwashes people into not thinking critically, but instead memorizing what is the, quote, right thing to think versus the wrong thing to believe and to think, and that he's just written some books. That makes him an expert. It is a laughable resume item to present as one of credibility. It's just laughable. But it is ultimately an exchange like that just fun to hear them really tear at each other. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. IWantAGreatHomeLoan.com. You got those home loan needs. You have IWantAGreatHomeLoan.com. All right. So whatever. What am I hearing here? Oh, sorry. Okay. I had some. I need to get my act together over here. IWantAGreatHomeLoan.com. Maybe some refinancing, maybe a home loan. Maybe we were holding it off because of the election. You didn't know what's going to happen with that. What does that mean for interest rates? There are questions about what tax cuts and tariffs and all of these things, what impact they will have. Is the Fed going to do this? Is it going to do that? Some of it is unknown. Some of what they tell you is known isn't. Some of what they tell you is unknown is actually known. The characters in their team, They are the ones every day. They're on this. They're on the pulse. And this, by the way, doesn't mean that they're going to tell you this is the magic answer. We know everything. But they do know what they know, and they know what others don't know, and they know when others think that they know what they're saying. You know, what they've said on numerous occasions. Whenever you see these experts on TV, they're like 2 weeks behind what is actually going on. So in order to be the best informed about those decisions, reach out to the Carrickers before you make that decision at iwantagreathomeloan.com. I thought this was a pretty, it's not surprising, but I don't know, sometimes you need somebody to put something right in front of you for you to recognize it. And one of the people that is a cabinet pick or is RFK Jr., and this is giving heartburn to a lot of senators, and of course the media, they all portray him as a vaccine denier. And so what they want to do is portray him as a danger, total danger. And he's crazy. He's insane. The people who are going to be voting on this and questioning him have raked in millions from pharmaceutical companies. Now, while that does not mean, by default, they are in the pocket of pharmaceutical companies, I do think it is something that's worth mentioning. And it isn't just pharmaceutical companies, by the way, though this piece here lays out that argument. But much of what he talks about, RFK Jr., is food supply stuff, just the approach of overall health. You know, there's a talk that he gave, and it's circulating, in which he talks about just the health rate in this country versus all the others, despite the fact we have the best health care in the system, and particularly like the COVID death rates in our country versus other countries. He talked about in Haiti, for example, the numbers he gave was that it was like 1.4% of the population of Haiti was vaccinated. If you're not familiar with Haiti, it doesn't have the best healthcare system in the world. Yet in the whole country, there was just like 8 or 9 people that actually died of COVID. It was 30 per. I mean, the numbers were just so much per person, smaller than in the U.S. And you know what he talked about is when you look at the numbers, it wasn't COVID that killed people. It was chronic illness that combined with COVID caused people to die. And the reason that in the United States versus a lot of other countries that you had such a high COVID death rate had nothing whatsoever to do with whether people were vaccinated or not. It had to do with the chronic illness situation that we have in this country. And that's so much more than pharmaceutical companies. Now, pharmaceutical companies benefit from that, but they're not the reason for it. You know, there's so many other components involved. And it's not to say that they don't push lifestyles and so forth that contribute to it. But point being is RFK Jr., the industries that donate money to these senators whose livelihoods could be impacted by meaningful change if RFK Jr. is able to do that. I mean, there's plenty of industries. I guarantee you there are plenty of industries out there that donate money to senators. I'm talking about them because they're the ones that will consent. That do not want RFK Jr. to have any sort of authority in the government. Tristan Justice, he writes that stocks for the food and pharmaceutical industries plummeted Friday immediately. upon Trump's nomination of RFK Jr. to lead the Department of Health and Human Services. If confirmed as the head of HHS, Kennedy will oversee a nearly $2 trillion department responsible for the administration of federal health insurance programs, in addition to regulatory agencies governing food and medicine. HHS holds jurisdiction over the National Institution of Health, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and the Food and Drug Administration, making HHS a primary recruitment ground for the pharmaceutical companies' revolving door of influence. Kennedy, who ran for president and then campaigned for Trump as a chief antagonist of Big Pharma, has the industry bracing for generational changes threatening Wall Street's bottom line. Lawmakers on the Senate Finance Committee, however, will vote first on Kennedy's nomination after raking in hundreds of thousands of dollars in contributions from the pharmaceutical industry. Now concerned about Kennedy's plans to gut predatory advertising practices and eliminate taxpayer subsidies. While most Republican senators have remained largely silent on how they might vote on Kennedy's confirmation, pharmaceutical lobbyists are almost certainly calling lawmakers after drug money-lined campaign coffers of both parties. According to a Federalist analyst of inquiry or industry donations to members of the Senate Finance Committee, compiled by Open Secrets, pharmaceutical companies contributed more than $6.7 million between 2019 and 2024 to lawmakers who will determine whether Kennedy gets a full vote by the upper chamber. Now, you may think in terms of money that's donated, like $6.7 million, that's not very much. Well, that's not overall to elected officials. That is only specifically to the senators who will be voting on whether or not the Senate even has a chance to vote on Kennedy. Republican senators took more than twice as much industry money, though 5 members were excluded from the Federalist analysis because 2 lost their recent races, 2 are retiring, and 1, Senator George Helmy of New Jersey, was appointed just a little over 2 months ago. So that leaves Senator Catherine Cortez Masto of Nevada, who is the highest recipient of pharmaceutical money among Democrats on the committee, having gotten nearly $460,000 over the last 5 years. Cortez Masto was followed by New Hampshire's Maggie Hassan, who got more than $360,000, and Oregon's Ron Wyden, who took in nearly $352,000 on the Republican side. Senator Tom Tillis of North Carolina has benefited the most across all members of the Finance Committee, with more than $679,000 in contributions from pharmaceutical companies. Senator Bill Cassidy of Louisiana came in a close second on the committee with more than $660,000 in pharmaceutical receipts, and Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina came in third with nearly $564,000. Republicans overall brought in nearly $5 million from the pharmaceutical industry across 13 members, while Democrats raised more than $1.7 million across 9. While lawmakers have raised millions from pharmaceutical companies anxious about RFK presiding over the nation's premier public health agencies, such donations do not necessarily mean senators are inherently compromised. For example, Republican Senator Ron Johnson. He received more than $124,000 from the industry over 5 years, yet has held a series of roundtables critical of the industry in the aftermath of the coronavirus lockdowns. Johnson's most recent event featured a panel led by Kennedy himself back in September. Kennedy said at the Senate roundtable, if America fails, the chief reason will be because we let our country get sicker, more depressed, fatter, more infertile at an increasing rate while crippling our national security, bankrupting our national budget with health care costs. Every major pillar of the U.S. healthcare system, as a statement of economic fact, Kennedy added, makes money when Americans get sick. Johnson already announced his support for Kennedy's confirmation, saying, I think he'll do an extremely good job because it's kind of hard to refute the truth, and he'll be laying out many truths. Now, potentially, the donations could backfire on the pharmaceutical industry, because if I'm one of these U.S. senators One thing I probably would not want to be labeled as being paid for and bought off by the pharmaceutical industry. And so somebody who potentially is on the fence about Kennedy might be sensitive to the fact that if they vote against him, particularly be it an upcoming primary or general election, they can be seen as defying Donald Trump because of being paid and bought for by the pharmaceutical industry, and they certainly don't want that. And they would fear that label more than what sort of label they may receive because they voted in favor of nominating Kennedy. But we'll see. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Bradford Light, tailored for the hardworking men and women who appreciate a reliable, easy drinking experience. 3.8%. Bradford Light, crafted with precision and care, offering the crisp, refreshing taste that satisfies without overwhelming. No Bull, Just Beer, brought to you by Show Me Beverage, produced by the good people in Washington, Kansas. Kansas Territory Brewing Company. You can find it at Area Macadoodles and Price Cutter. I don't have the audio of it. There's no point in really playing it necessarily, but it is just sort of humorous that The View has already had to issue a, quote, legal note regarding comments that were made on the show about Matt Gaetz. Goldberg, Whoopi. Sonny, you have a legal note? Sonny Hostin. I do have a legal note. Thank you, Whoopi. Matt Gaetz has long denied all allegations, calling the claims, quote, invented, and saying in a statement to ABC News that the false smear following a 3-year criminal investigation should be viewed with great skepticism. The DOJ investigation was closed with no charges being brought. Goldberg will be right back, and then cut to commercial. So I don't even know which of the many outlandish allegations was made that the legal department at ABC felt it was necessary for that public declaration. But I've noted this before. There is no show that comes anywhere close, and this is supposed to be a show of news and information. There is no show that has come close to being forced to come back after a previous segment and issue an official statement backtracking on something they said in order to protect themselves legally. It is just amazing to what degree they have to do it. And it is, frankly, quite entertaining. Glenn Beck is coming up next. We will talk with you tomorrow. I'm Nick Reed.